So this is about the course objectives which we have discussed in the previous class. There are 4 course objectives. The course objectives are somewhat generic in nature because it's almost whatever you see in the modules. That's got very little links to the higher levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. Basically, it's to provide an understanding of DSP concepts, principles, applications, to study certain design techniques, certain design algorithms. We have a very brief section on multi-rate signal processing, which you usually do not see in the undergraduate syllabus for digital signal processing. And then we usually also look at the architecture of digital signal processing. So I believe that in the 2019 revision, the course objective 3 has been totally removed because multi-rate signal processing is best studied at a postgraduate level. We have a very slight introduction to the concept of multi-rate signal processing. So this is a syllabus. The expected outcome is also framed in a rather generic manner. The student will understand the principle of digital signal processing and applications. And the second part is very interesting. The utilization of DSP to electronics engineering will also be studied. So what does that indicate? It indicates that DSP can be applied to many branches of engineering, not only just electronics engineering. So when you look at applications of DSP to electronics engineering, maybe we can look at, for example, application of DSP to an audio processing system. So you'll need electronics to capture the signal. Maybe you can look at a temperature signal processing system. So you have an instrumentation system capturing temperature. And maybe you can even look at a control process to control the temperature, etc. So likewise, you can look at several physical phenomena, like for example, image, video, temperature, etc. Temperature, pressure, etc. So all of these can be captured, and then all of them can be converted to the digital domain and processed using digital algorithms, and then you go back to the real world. That's go back to the continuous world by using a digital to analog converter. So all those we had discussed in the introductory classes. So these are the textbooks, Oppenheim and Schaffer and Buck. Oppenheim and Schaffer and Buck by Prentice Hall 2007. So if you are interested, I suggest you look through the video lectures by Oppenheim, who is a professor emeritus at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So you can look at the repository of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology called MIT OCW. MIT OCW. OCW refers to Open Courseware. So you can just do a Google search and you can get a link to all the video lectures by Oppenheim. So you'll find that the video lectures are very interesting. So that will help you to gain more knowledge on the subject. So the concepts are introduced very extremely well. So in fact, those are the best lectures that I have seen on digital signal processing on the internet. The second textbook is also very good, Proakis and Analogis, which is by Pearson Education. So that's also available in the college library. So if you do a Google search, you will probably be getting PDF versions of both the textbooks. And you have several references that I mentioned. So of particular interest is the reference 3, which will help you in doing your digital signal processing labs, laboratory experience. At Model Engineering College, we do the DSP lab sessions using the MATLAB clone called Octave. We use a MATLAB clone called Octave. That's the reason for that is the college does not have, or it does not even intend to purchase a MATLAB licensed software for the undergraduate labs, because the MATLAB clones, which are totally free, are more than capable of addressing all the issues, all the experiments that you have in the DSP laboratory sessions. you can also do the same using Python. There are other MATLAB clones as well, such as Scilab is another MATLAB clone. You can also look at Maple. So these are other examples of MATLAB clones. So MATLAB clone, C-L-O-N-E, MATLAB clones. And the hardware, DSP hardware, you see in the reference file. So for us, the references 3 and 5 are also important. References 3 and 5 are also important. And the reference 1 is a very graceful introduction to the concepts of digital signal processing. You'll see that the textbook has got very little math. It explains the concepts very, very lucidly. So you can even look at the reference 1 to understand the concepts, but that might not help you to solve many numerical problems. So that reference is also very good. So this is the course plan for the module 1, where you initially discuss the formulation for the discrete Fourier transform. We will interpret the discrete Fourier transform as a linear transformation. Then we will also find out the relationship between the DFT and the other transforms, such as, let's say, DTFT. We look at the relationship between DFT and the Z transform. We look at the relationship between DFT and the continuous Fourier transform. Look at the relationship between DFT and the discrete Fourier series. Look at the relationship between DFT and the Laplace transform, etc. And we will also look at IDFT. Then thereafter, we will look at the properties of DFT and very specifically the circular convolution property of the DFT. Then we will address the linear filtering methods using DFT. We will look at the implementation of linear convolution, which you have seen in the previous semester course, Signals and Systems. And we will see how linear convolution can be implemented using circular convolution. So there are two methods which are called as overlap save and overlap add. And then finally, we will also look at the frequency analysis of signals using the DFT. So this is what we will see in the module 1. For module 1, the total number of hours is 11. See, 2 plus 4, 6 plus 3, 9 plus 2, 12. So we have to finish this in 11 hours. So this will not include the tutorial sessions. We will have separate tutorial sessions. And for the first series test, you will have modules 1 and 2. Module 2 is very closely related to module 1. So which can be discussed only after completing certain sections of module 1. So maybe I can also even try discussing certain parts of the module 1 and module 2 slightly overlapping. Okay, so that's also possible. So this we have discussed in the previous class, but I intend to discuss this once again because in the previous session, some of the students reported that they had certain connectivity issues, so they were not able to attend the entire class in the lecture 1. So I will discuss this once again. So we will be looking at discrete signals in the frequency domain. So what are discrete signals? So discrete signals are those which are discrete only in the independent domain. So if the independent variable is time or in space, you look at discretizing the independent variable. So either the time domain or the space domain or the space-time domain or the multi-dimensional space domain, etc. are discretized. So for example, if it is x of t, you now only look at x of n. If it is f of xy, now you look at f of mn. If you look at f of xy, now you look at f of mn. Okay, so f of xy now is f of mn. So m and n are discrete variables. So let's say m and n takes integer values. You are not looking at discretizing the amplitude of the signal. So that is quantization. So you are only now therefore looking at sampling of a continuous time signal, which results in a discrete time signal. You can also call this as a discrete time sequence, because once you digitize the signal, now it is just a set of numbers as we have seen already. We have discussed this earlier. So once we digitize the signal, it is just a discrete it is just a discrete time sequence. Now, to analyze the discrete signal in the frequency domain, you have what is known as a discrete time Fourier transform. So discrete time Fourier transforms is the frequency domain representation of a sequence x of n. So now you do not bother whether n is a time value or n is a spatial value. So if n is a temporal value or if n is a spatial value, x of n refers to only a set of numbers. So that has to be made very clear. So now you have a set of numbers. So that is why we call this discrete signal as a discrete sequence. This set of numbers can be called as a sequence, discrete sequence. And now you also have that this discrete sequence has got a frequency domain representation given by discrete time Fourier transform, which you call as x of e power j omega, where you write e power j omega to emphasize that the discrete frequency is periodic. Discrete frequency is periodic, which means that the discrete frequencies are unique only in the range minus pi to plus pi. Minus pi to plus pi. And now you can relate this to the sampling theorem also, because the maximum discrete frequency is the maximum frequency of the signal that can be reconstructed from the discrete samples, which is the half of the sampling frequency. So you can reconstruct only up to fs by 2, where fs is the sampling frequency. So therefore, fs by 2 corresponds to the discrete frequency pi, and minus fs by 2 corresponds to the discrete frequency minus pi. So you have x of e power j omega is equal to sigma over n x of n e raised to minus j omega n, and x of n, here you have x of n is equal to 1 by 2 pi integral minus pi to plus pi x of omega e raised to j omega and d omega. Note that n is a discrete variable and omega is a continuous variable. Omega is a continuous variable, which means that omega take any value in between minus pi to plus pi. So omega is a continuum of values from minus pi to plus pi, which also indicates that you will not be able to write a computer algorithm for computing the entire range of x of e power j omega. You will not be able to write an algorithm. So this is not implementable as an algorithm. X of e power j omega cannot be implemented as an algorithm. Why? Because omega has got infinity values from minus pi to plus pi. Now, if you look at the inverse discrete time Fourier transform, that inverse discrete time Fourier transform, that also will make the above discussion clear. You observe that this is an integral expression, 1 by 2 pi integral minus pi to plus pi x of e power j omega e raised to j omega d omega. So this integral cannot be computed by using a algorithm, by using a digital algorithm, by using a numerical algorithm, which means that if you need to implement this integral, you will somehow have to convert this to a numerical algorithm. You will have to use numerical methods. So therefore, there is a case for the discretization of the frequency domain variable omega. So this will lead to your formulation for the discrete Fourier transform. So you have a discrete time Fourier transform, and this discrete time Fourier transform can be implemented as an algorithm by its discrete version, which is known as the discrete Fourier transform. Okay. Now, as I had discussed in the previous class, we are now going to consider a signal x of n that is a finite duration. So this is very important. So this first line is very important. Consider a finite duration signal of length n. So x of n is the finite duration sequence of length n. Now it starts from 0 and goes up to n minus 1. So there are n samples. X of n is a finite signal of length n starting from the 0th index to the index n minus 1. So there are n samples. Its DTFT you can write as x of e power j omega is equal to sigma over n x of n e raised to minus j omega. As we have seen, omega is a continuous variable. So therefore, This can be evaluated only by using numerical methods. Let us look at the sampling of the continuous time variable omega to yield what are known as the discrete frequencies called omega k. Assume that the DTFT is sampled at the set of discrete frequencies. We call these discrete set of frequencies as omega k, which is equal to 2 pi k by n, where k takes values minus infinity, etc., minus 2, 1, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., up to n, n plus 1, etc., up to infinity. So k takes only integer values. So the number of values that k can take is still infinity, but k takes only integer values. So as we already have seen, the discrete frequency has got the dimensions of radians. I hope you remember about that. The continuous frequency has got the dimensions of radians per second, whereas the discrete angular frequency has got the dimension of radians. So the discrete frequencies can be, let's say if I put k equal to 0, that could be 2 pi into 0 by n, that's 0 radian. If I put k is equal to 1, that is 2 pi by n radians, where n is the length of the sequence. If k is equal to 2, that is 2 pi into 2 by n, that is 4 pi by n radians, etc. So they take only integer values. K takes only integer values. So that is, you can write x of e power e raised to j 2 pi k by n, x of e raised to j 2 pi k by n, which you will call as x tilde of k, which is equal to sigma n equal to minus infinity to plus infinity x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi k by n into n. I will rearrange and write this as sigma n equal to minus infinity plus infinity x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n. So in the textbooks you might see that it is kn. Some of the textbooks might write this as kn. I only write this as nk to nk simply because it sounds better to me. So you can write it as kn or nk. But in the textbook you might see this as e raised to minus j 2 pi kn by n. So there could be certain significances to this order when you look at the matrix representation of this equation. Okay, so we will discuss all that later. Now, why did we write this as x tilde of k? We wrote this as x tilde of k because x tilde of k is periodic. Observe that if you write x of e raised to j 2 pi k plus n by n, that is e raised to j 2 pi k by n into e raised to j 2 pi n by n, the second time reduces to a 1. So you find that x tilde of k plus n is equal to x tilde of k. So x tilde of k minus n will also be equal to x tilde of k. X tilde of k plus 2n will also be equal to x tilde of k, and so on. So this indicates that this x tilde of k is a periodic sequence, and the periodicity of the sequence is n. The periodicity of the sequence is n. So x tilde of k is a periodic sequence. So this we can write as x tilde of k. So now it was an infinite summation. So now we will split the summations into durations of n, and then we will add all those together. So like for example, you look at the samples from 0 to n minus 1, x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n plus sigma n equal to minus n is equal to n to 2n minus 1, x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n. Here, the previous sum would be sigma n equal to minus n to minus 1, x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n plus etc. to either sides, which I can write as, if I look at this, that is x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n. And if I change the summation, limits the summation as n is equal to ln to ln plus n minus 1, then this entire sum can be written as sigma L equal to minus infinity to plus infinity, sigma n is equal to ln plus n minus 1, x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n. Now, we will change the index of the inner summation from n to n minus ln. So we will replace n by n minus ln. So that will make the lower limit of the summation as n equal to 0. So that's easily verifiable. If I put n is equal to n minus ln here, so this lower limit of summation will be n is equal to 0. And the upper limit of summation will be n minus 1. So sigma over L sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n minus ln e raised to minus j 2 pi n minus ln k by n, which again if we simplify, you see that L is an integer, K is an integer. So the second term vanishes to 1. So this we can write as sigma over L, sigma over n, x of n minus ln e raised to minus j2 pi n k by n. And now we will interchange the order of the summation. So interchanging the order of the summation, this becomes sigma over n, sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1, sigma over L, x of n minus ln e raised to minus j2 pi n k by n. So we are interested in what is this sequence, x of n minus ln. That is sigma over L, x of n minus ln. So now we look at that sequence. So what is sigma over L, x of n minus ln? Remember that x of n was a finite duration sequence of length n. So let us put L is equal to 1 and see what is the sequence corresponding to x of n minus n. So x of n minus n is the sequence x of n shifted by n samples. Let us put L equal to minus 1, then that becomes x of n plus n, which is x of n shifted to the negative direction by n samples. Likewise, if we put L equal to 2, L is equal to minus 2, L is equal to 3, L equal to minus 3, etc., you are going to end up with a periodic sequence x tilde of n, whose one period from 0 to n minus 1 is the same as x of n. So that is repeated. That sequence x of n is repeated to form a periodic sequence. Or in other words, you can write x tilde of k is equal to sigma over n, x tilde of n, e raised to minus j2 pi n k by n. Okay. So x tilde of k is sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1, x tilde of n, e raised to minus j2 pi n k by n. So that is important. We'll freeze that equation, which we will later call as the analysis equation. Now, what does k represent? K was the integer value corresponding to the frequency domain. So k is a frequency domain variable. Did you get this? K is a frequency domain variable. N is the time domain variable. So k, n, and n are integers. K is an integer, n is an integer. So you have a transformation from the domain n, which is the temporal domain, to the domain k, which is the frequency domain. Now, x tilde of n is a periodic signal, so therefore it can be expanded as an exponential Fourier series. Now, how do you represent the exponential Fourier series? The exponential Fourier series x tilde, say for example, if we have a periodic signal, continuous periodic signal x tilde of t, x tilde of t, let this be a continuous periodic signal x tilde of t. We have the exponential Fourier series that will result in a line spectrum, which we have studied in the previous semester. So that exponential Fourier series could have been represented by, for that continuous time periodic signal x tilde of t, its exponential Fourier series would have been sigma over k is equal to minus infinity to plus infinity. See the limits. K is equal to minus infinity to plus infinity. Ck e raised to j k omega naught t, where k is an integer, so that will result in a line spectrum. Omega naught is a fundamental frequency. So k is an integer, omega naught is a fundamental frequency, and if you plot Ck, you will get lines in the frequency domain, starting from a DC permanent for k equal to 0. For k is equal to plus or minus 1, you have the fundamental frequency. For k is equal to plus or minus 2, you have the first harmonic. K is equal to plus or minus 2, you have the second harmonic, plus etc. It extends to infinity, both sides, from minus infinity to plus infinity. So you have a line spectrum. And you have seen that if x tilde of t was a real signal, then that line spectrum would be symmetric, that we have seen. And that line spectrum can have a magnitude part and a phase part, or you can also represent as a real part and an imaginary part. So Ck you can evaluate. Okay, so now the major difference here is that earlier we had the representation of the continuous type periodic signal x tilde of t in terms of the set e raised to j k omega naught t. where k can take values from minus infinity to plus infinity. So each of these e raised to j k omega naught t was different. Now, however, because of the periodicity of the complex exponential in the discrete domain, we have seen that e raised to j 2 pi n k by n is the same as e raised to j 2 pi n k by n, where if you replace k by k plus n, you have the same value. E raised to j 2 pi n by n into k plus n would be the same as e raised to j 2 pi n k by n. So you can also see that e raised to j 2 pi n k minus n by n is also the same as the original complex exponential. So the complex exponential is periodic, and therefore there are only n number of unique discrete complex exponentials. They are the values for k equal to 0 to n minus 1. So e raised to j 2 pi n into 0 by n, that is one complex exponential, which is the DC component. Then if I put k is equal to 1, e raised to j 2 pi into n by n, that's the second unique discrete complex exponential. If I put n is equal to 2, that is e raised to j 2 pi n into 2 by n, that's the third discrete complex exponential. And likewise, the last one would be e raised to j 2 pi into n minus 1 by n, which is the nth unique discrete complex exponential. So there are only n discrete complex exponentials that are unique, right? So you can write Ck is equal to 1 by n sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n k by n, which I will prove here, because actually there is no need to prove this, because you can very easily see the parallel between the continuous time equation for Ck, which is an integral expression, and the summation expression for Ck here, which is a discrete summation. So we will also try to prove this. The proof is very trivial. Now you have x tilde of n is equal to sigma over k Ck e raised to j 2 pi n k by n. You will call this as equation A. Now there are only n unique discrete complex exponentials. If you multiply both sides of A by, let's say, e raised to minus j 2 pi n into m by n into m by n, and if you sum over n equal to 0 to n minus 1, so the left hand side becomes sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n into m by n, x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi n into m by n, summed over n equal to 0 to n minus 1. And the right hand side now becomes a double summation, sigma over n, sigma over k, Ck e raised to j 2 pi n k by n into e raised to minus j 2 pi n m by n. I will group the complex exponentials together here and write this as sigma over k equal to 0 to n minus 1 Ck into sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 into e raised to j 2 pi k minus n by n. Is that clear? Now you see that k is an integer, m is also an integer. So k minus m also therefore has to be an integer. And now therefore if I put k minus m is equal to p, if I put k minus m is equal to p, the second summation can be written as sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 e raised to j 2 pi n by n into k minus n, which is equal to sigma n equal to 0 to n minus n e raised to j 2 pi n into p by n, where p is equal to k minus n, an integer. And now we will try to evaluate the summation. This is the summation of a geometric progression. This is the sum of a geometric progression. Now, this can be evaluated by means of the sum to n times of a geometric progression, which is a into 1 minus r raised to n by 1 minus r. 1 minus r raised to n by 1 minus r, a being equal to 1 here. So 1 minus r raised to n by 1 minus r. What is r? R is e raised to j 2 pi p by n. E raised to j 2 pi p by n. Right? Okay. So if you evaluate this term, you will see that this term is equal to, each of this term is equal to 1. Each of this term in the summation is equal to 1 if p is equal to 0. So that's easily understood. Because e raised to j into 2 pi n into 0 will be equal to 1. So each of this term is equal to 1. So if you add n such ones, that's equal to n. So that is if p is equal to 0 or if k is equal to n, this summation is equal to n. And now if you put p not equal to 0, let us see if you put p not equal to 0, what happens? So that now evaluates to 1 minus e raised to j 2 pi p by n the whole raised to n by 1 minus e raised to j 2 pi p by n. So let us look at the numerator. Numerator is 1 minus e raised to j 2 pi p by n the whole raised to n, which is 1 minus e raised to j 2 pi p capital N by capital N. So you can cancel those capital N, so that reduces to 1 minus e raised to j 2 pi p. Now p is an integer. So e raised to j 2 pi p is therefore equal to 1. So the numerator reduces to 1 minus 1 and therefore it reduces to 0. So when p is not equal to 0, the summation reduces to 0. If p is equal to 0, that is if k is equal to m, the summation reduces to n. Is that understood? So therefore this we can write as this expression sigma over n x tilde of n e raised to minus a 2 pi n by m can be written as sigma over k equal to 0 to n minus 1 ck into this expression. You see that this summation is equal to n if what? This summation is equal to n if what? If k is equal to m. So that is, this reduces to n into cm, right? N into cm reduces to the summation n into cm. That's reduces to k is equal to this summation reduces to n into cm, or which means that if you write the expression for ck now, instead of m you write k. So ck therefore should be equal to, here instead of m you write k. So ck should be equal to sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x tilde of n e raised to minus a2 pi n k by n, instead of m you write k here. So which means that ck is equal to 1 by n x tilde of k. So that is this expression. So ck is equal to 1 by n sigma over n x tilde of n e raised to minus a2 pi n k by n, or ck is equal to 1 by n x tilde of k, which now summarized here. Which now we will summarize here. Therefore, we can write x tilde of k is equal to sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x tilde of n e raised to minus a2 pi n k by n. Let us call this as the analysis equation. And the second equation is x tilde of n 1 by n sigma k equal to 0 to n minus 1 x tilde of k e raised to 2 pi n k by n, which we call as the synthesis equation. So you know why this is called as the analysis equation and why the second equation is called as the synthesis equation. So this is the analysis equation and this is the synthesis equation. Analysis, because you are now analyzing the discrete time periodic sequence x tilde of n to get x tilde of k. So this gives you which all frequency components are present in x tilde of n. X tilde of k gives you the frequency components that are present in x tilde of n. And the reverse. So this is an analysis of x tilde of n. You analyze x tilde of n to find which all frequency components are present. So x tilde of k indicates the frequency components that are present. For example, x tilde of 0 indicates the DC component of x tilde of n. Capital X tilde of 1 indicates the fundamental frequency of x tilde of n. Okay. Ashwin is ippana join cheythathu class la. Ashwin, please unmute your mic and please answer this. Did you join only now? Ashwin is Ashwin, roll number 62, is he absent?
Yes, sir.
Ashwin താമസിച്ചാണോ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തത്?
Sir.
എന്ത് പറ്റി, മറന്നുപോയോ?
വൈകിപ്പിച്ചിട്ട് എണീറ്റ്.
അത് ഞായറാഴ്ച ഇവിടെ 11 മണി വരെ കിടന്നുറങ്ങരുത്.
ഞായറാഴ്ച
ഞായറാഴ്ച ആണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ക്ലാസ് ഉണ്ടല്ലോ. ഇതൊരു സാധാരണ ഞായറാഴ്ച എടുക്കണ്ടല്ലോ. ഞായറാഴ്ച ആണെങ്കിൽ തന്നെ എഴുന്നേക്കുന്ന ഒരു 10 മണിക്കൊക്കെ അപ്പുറത്തേക്കൊക്കെ പോവോ ഇവിടെ? ക്ലാസ്സിലാണെന്ന് ഉച്ച കഴിഞ്ഞ് പോവല്ലോ. എന്തായാലും ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യും. ഞാൻ ഞായറാഴ്ച എടുക്കേണ്ടി വന്നത് നിങ്ങളുടെ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ചിലരുടെ റിക്വസ്റ്റ് കാരണമാണ്. അതേഴ്സ് ഐ ഓൾസോ വുഡ് ലൈക്ക് ടു പ്രിഫർ ടു സ്ലീപ് ത്രൂ ദി ആഫ്റ്റർനൂൺ. എസ്പെഷ്യലി ഇപ്പൊ എല്ലാവരുടെയും ബോഡി ക്ലോക്ക് ഒക്കെ തെറ്റിപ്പോയിട്ടാണ്. പക്ഷെ ഈ സബ്ജക്റ്റിന് ഒരു പ്രത്യേകത. സോ ദിസ് പാർട്ട് ഓഫ് ദി ഡിസ്കഷൻ ഇസ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ്. അതായത് DSB എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു സബ്ജക്ട്, ടു മീ ഇറ്റ്സ് ദി മോസ്റ്റ് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് സബ്ജക്ട് ദാറ്റ് ഐ ഹാവ് എൻകൗണ്ടർഡ് ഇൻ മൈ undergraduate curriculum. സബ്ജക്ട് വളരെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് ആണ്. പക്ഷേ പ്രശ്നം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ആ സബ്ജക്ട് പഠിക്കേണ്ട രീതിയിൽ പഠിക്കും. അതർവൈസ് പീപ്പിൾ വുഡ് start to expand it in different ways. Some students could expand DSP as definitely supplementary paper. That is one expansion, as some of them say. And the second expansion that some people use is degree stopping paper. Actually, ഇത് രണ്ടും അല്ല. സോ സബ്ജക്ട് വളരെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് ആണ്. ഇത് വളരെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അതിന്റെ ഒരു പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവില് പഠിക്കണം. മാത്സ് അല്ല പഠിക്കുന്നത് എന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കി പഠിക്കണം. ഓരോ സാധനത്തിനും ഒരു അർത്ഥമുണ്ട്. There is a meaning. You have to try to relate this algorithm to a system. So you need to have a system point of view for this subject. Your initial classes would be very important for that. So once you get a hang into what the algorithms are all about, only then you will be able to follow the rest. So if you get the hang of the initial classes, so the initial classes are extremely important. So that is why I chose to repeat all this, whatever I have been discussed in the first session. Here also, because I need to make this very thorough for everyone. Okay, so the second equation is called as a synthesis equation. Why? Because you are synthesizing the signal external diaphragm from its frequency domain coefficient. So you have an analysis and a synthesis equation, just like you had for every transform, just like you had for the Z transform, just like you had for the Laplace transform, just like you had for the continuous time Fourier transform, just like you had for the continuous Fourier series. You have an analysis equation and a synthesis equation for the discrete Fourier series. Okay. Now, you don't have to study discrete Fourier series this semester. Actually, discrete Fourier series must have been studied in the previous semester. But this is very closely related to what is to be studied in the first module, which is the discrete Fourier transform. So now we will see the discrete Fourier series to discrete Fourier transform. How this can be related to the discrete Fourier transform. You have this discrete periodic sequence x tilde of n. So x tilde of n is the discrete periodic sequence. Now you have what is known as the discrete Fourier series for the sequence which is called as x tilde of k. Discrete Fourier series for the sequence which is called as x tilde of k. Okay. Now let me take one cycle of x tilde of n. One cycle of x tilde of n. Remember our original discussion. We had started with a finite duration sequence x of n, which had n samples. So one cycle of x tilde of n is x of n, which we write here. Okay. And we look at one cycle of x tilde of k. We will call this as x of k. So x tilde of k was a periodic sequence. It had the same periodicity as x tilde of n, which means that the period of x tilde of k is also equal to n. Okay. So one cycle of x tilde of k will be equal to x of k. How many samples will be there in x of k therefore? Meenakshi, are you listening? So can you answer this question? How many samples are there in X of
Yes,
k?
sir. N samples will
There
be
will
there.
be n samples. Right. So there will be n samples. So now, therefore, you have a frequency domain representation for x of n, which we will call as x of k. We will call this as a discrete Fourier transform. Now we have not, till now we have not related x of k to x of e power j omega. We do not know what is the relationship between x of k and x of e power j omega. It's not very evident now, but we do know that x tilde of k is the sampled version of x of e power j omega, right? How did we get that? We started from here. You started by sampling the discrete time Fourier transform. You know that x of e power j omega is periodic, right? So therefore, this x of k also has to be periodic. So that's very evident. X of k is the samples of x of e power j omega, so that's also periodic. Okay. So x of e power j omega is periodic and its period is from minus pi to plus pi. X of e power j omega is periodic with a period from minus pi to plus pi. So therefore, x tilde of k should be also periodic, is also periodic with a period of n samples, because you are taking n samples in one period. You are taking n samples in one period. So what does it mean? X of k should be therefore the period, the unique period of x tilde of t. So x of k should represent the samples of x of e power j omega from the angle 0 to the angle 2 pi. Is that understood? So x of k is a sampled version of x of e power j omega. We will establish that later. But anyhow, it's now intuitively understood. X of n is one cycle of x tilde of n. X of k is one cycle of x tilde of k. X tilde of k is the sampled version of x of e power j omega. So x of e power j omega is unique only over a period of continuous period of 2 pi intervals, which is from minus pi to plus pi, or maybe from 0 to 2 pi. So from 0 to 2 pi, let's look at the unique range of frequencies from 0 to 2 pi. So that is being sampled at omega k is equal to 2 pi k by n. Omega k is equal to 2 pi k by n. And so therefore, x of k is a sampled version of x of e power j omega from 0 to 2 pi by n. Okay, is that understood? We will call this as the discrete Fourier transform of x of n. Is that clear? Now, therefore, you can write the discrete Fourier transform in this expression, in this form. X of k is equal to sigma over n, x of n e raised to minus j2 pi n k by n. Now, you have to limit this to one cycle of x tilde of k. To limit this to one cycle of x tilde of k, we limit the range of k from 0, 1, 2, etc. to n minus 1. We'll call this as the analysis equation. Likewise, you have the synthesis equation. You have the synthesis equation for the DFS. Now, the synthesis equation for the DFT has to limit this to one cycle of x tilde of n. So, therefore, x of n you write as 1 by n sigma k equal to 0 to n minus 1. X of k e raised to j 2 pi n k by n, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, etc. to n minus 1. This is called as the synthesis equation. So, you have a pair of equations here. This is the equation for discrete Fourier series, and this is the equation for the discrete Fourier transform. And now, we will look at a very important notation for the complex exponential. This is very popularly used by all the others. The complex quantity e raised to minus j2 pi by n is usually represented by w subscript n. We will just read this as wn. So wn is equal to e raised to minus j2 pi by n. wn is equal to e raised to minus j2 pi n. See that wn is equal to e raised to minus. So understand that there is a minus here. So using this, you can write the analysis equation for the discrete Fourier series as x tilde of k is equal to sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1. X tilde of n wn raised to nk. So see that this is wn raised to plus nk. Why? Because wn was equal to e raised to minus j2 pi k. So x tilde of k is equal to sigma over n, x tilde of k is equal to sigma over n, x tilde of n, w and raised to nk. We will call this as the analysis equation. And x tilde of n is equal to 1 by n, sigma over k equal to 0 to n minus 1, x tilde of k into w and raised to minus nk. We will call this as the synthesis equation. We will look at the discrete Fourier transform expression. The discrete Fourier transform expression looks at one cycle of the DFS equation. Now, therefore, x of k is equal to sigma over n equal to 0 to n minus 1, x of n e raised to minus j2 pi nk by n, k equal to 0, 1, 2, etc. to n minus 1. We call this as the analysis equation. And the synthesis equation x of n is equal to 1 by n, sigma over k equal to 0 to n minus 1, x of k e raised to j2 pi nk by n, n equal to 0 to etc. n minus 1 equals the synthesis equation. So these are the analysis and the synthesis. W raised to minus nk. Here we have W raised to plus nk. So we'll take a break now. We'll continue after a 10 minutes break if that's okay with everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll take a break. We'll continue afterwards. So we will continue exactly after 10 minutes. I request everyone to be present after 10 minutes.